The impact tore through Vieira's ship like a hungry beast, shredding metal and circuitry as the vessel carved a burning scar across Terminus 7's barren landscape. Emergency lights pulsed crimson inside the cockpit as toxic atmosphere hissed through ruptured seals. Vieira Tandrel, junior diplomat of the Nebulan Confederacy, fought against the restraints that had saved her life, but now threatened to trap her in what would become her tomb. "Mayday, Mayday," she gasped into the communications array, the translator pendant at her throat converting her native clicks and whistles into standard galactic speech. "Diplomatic vessel NT-417 down on quarantine planet Terminus 7, coordinates unknown, requesting immediate extraction." Only static answered. Vieira's four-fingered hand slammed against the console in frustration, her iridescent blue skin already developing angry purple welts where Terminus 7's poisonous air touched exposed flesh. The attack had come without warning. One moment her diplomatic convoy was en route to the peace summit, the next, half the ships were in flames. Vieira had barely managed to reach the escape pod before her main vessel exploded. Now, stranded on perhaps the deadliest planet in the sector, she was running out of options. The emergency protocols were clear: stay with the ship. But with life support failing and toxic air seeping in, the ship had become a death trap. Her only hope was to reach higher ground and boost her distress signal. According to her damaged scanner, there was a ridge 2 kilometers east that might offer enough elevation. Vieira sealed her torn environmental suit as best she could and grabbed the emergency pack. Her people had evolved in the methane lakes of Nebulan, resilient to many toxins, but Terminus 7 was in a class of its own. The planet's ecosystem had evolved to produce compounds that broke down organic matter with terrifying efficiency. Without protection, most species would dissolve from the inside out within hours. Outside, the alien landscape stretched before her like a twisted parody of life. Crystalline vegetation reflected the wan light of a distant sun, while misshapen fauna skittered among the rocks. Everything here had evolved to survive in poison, everything except her. Each step became more difficult as Vieira's body began to reject the planet's atmosphere. Her vision blurred, legs weakening. The ridge seemed impossibly far now. When she stumbled for the third time, her environmental pack dislodged, spilling precious filters across sharp crystal shards. "No, no, no," she wheezed, dropping to her knees to gather what she could, but it was too late. The specialized filters were punctured, useless. Vieira looked up at the ridge, still a kilometer away, and knew she wouldn't make it. Her translator pendant felt heavy against her chest as she activated its emergency beacon, a last, desperate attempt. The world tilted sideways as she collapsed among the crystalline vegetation. Darkness crept into the edges of her vision, and Vieira found herself thinking of home, the methane lakes of her childhood, shimmering under twin moons. How strange to die here, so far from anything familiar, on a planet where even her body would be consumed, leaving no trace that she had ever existed. 10 kilometers away, Kai Aldrin was harvesting crystalline fungus when his modified scanner beeped. 3 years stranded on Terminus 7 had taught him to ignore phantom signals, remnants of satellite debris or ancient beacons, but this one was different. Active. Recent. Kai adjusted his breathing apparatus, the familiar hiss of filtered air accompanying each breath. His makeshift protective gear was a patchwork of salvaged materials and ingenious adaptation, necessity being the mother of invention when your life depended on it. His once pristine research uniform had long since been reinforced with sealed patches and improvised armor against the crystalline vegetation. "Well, that's new," he muttered, adjusting the scanner's frequency. The signal was unmistakably artificial and, more importantly, unfamiliar. In 3 years, he'd mapped every piece of wreckage and abandoned equipment on this side of the continent. Curiosity overrode caution. New signals meant new salvage meant survival. Kai loaded his harvested fungus, a key component in his antitoxin formula, into his reinforced pack and set off toward the signal. The terrain of Terminus 7 had become as familiar to him as the back of his hand, each crystalline formation and toxic pool carefully mapped in his mental geography. When he crested the ridge overlooking a new impact crater, Kai expected to find another abandoned research drone or satellite fragment. Instead, he found an escape pod of unfamiliar design, and worse, a trail of footprints leading away from it. Someone had survived, someone was out in the poison. Following the trail, Kai moved with practiced efficiency, his reinforced boots crushing crystalline undergrowth. The footprints grew erratic, indicating disorientation or weakness. Then he saw her. A figure collapsed among the crystal formations, body already beginning to react to Terminus 7's toxic touch. She wasn't human. The blue-tinted skin and anatomical differences were obvious even from a distance. Nebulan. He'd only seen them in research files, an isolationist species rarely encountered beyond their home system. Kai hesitated. 3 years of solitude had taught him harsh lessons about survival. Resources were precious. An injured alien would consume supplies he couldn't spare. But 3 years of solitude had also left a hollowness that logic couldn't fill. Kai knelt beside the unconscious alien, checking for signs of life. Her breathing was shallow, her pulse weak but present. Without intervention, she'd be dead within hours. "You picked the wrong planet to crash on," he sighed, already calculating what medicines he would need, what filters he could sacrifice. Against all practical judgment, Kai lifted the alien into his arms and turned toward home, leaving a second set of footprints alongside the first, heading away from death and toward an uncertain sanctuary beneath the poisoned earth. The descent into Kai's underground bunker was a carefully choreographed dance, each airlock cycling through decontamination protocols he'd refined over years of solitude. Toxic particles glowed under ultraviolet light as they were filtered from the air, falling like deadly snow around him. The alien woman in his arms grew lighter with each passing moment, not a good sign. "Hold on," he muttered, though he doubted she could hear him. "Almost there." The inner chamber of his sanctuary was a testament to human ingenuity and desperation. What had once been an abandoned research outpost was now a warren of repurposed equipment and salvaged technology. Hydroponic gardens lined one wall, growing genetically modified plants that could process Terminus 7's compounds into breathable oxygen. The central space housed his laboratory, a chaotic array of testing equipment and distillation apparatus, where he created the medicines that kept him alive. Kai laid the alien on his medical table, hastily cleared of research notes. Up close, her physiology was even more fascinating. Blue-tinted skin covered in a fine, almost imperceptible pattern of scales, four-fingered hands with double-jointed thumbs, facial features strikingly similar to humans yet undeniably alien in their proportions. "What am I supposed to do with you?" Kai whispered, retrieving his medical scanner. The device, modified for Terminus 7's unique biology, had never been calibrated for Nebulan physiology. It beeped in confusion, readings fluctuating wildly. Years of scientific training kicked in. Observation, hypothesis, experimentation. The welts on her skin suggested the toxins were attacking her epidermis, but the labored breathing indicated systemic absorption. Without knowing her baseline vitals, he'd have to make educated guesses. Kai prepared his universal toxin binder, a concoction he'd developed for himself, modified countless times through painful trial and error. Would it work on her? Unknown. But the alternative was certainly death. "I hope your system is as adaptable as mine," he said, administering the first dose through an injection port he'd found on her environmental suit. "Because this is going to be unpleasant for both of us." The next 6 hours were a medical nightmare. Twice her heart stopped, forcing Kai to improvise a defibrillator calibrated to what he hoped was an appropriate charge for her species. Her temperature fluctuated wildly, forcing him to alternate between cooling measures and warming blankets. By hour 4, he'd created 3 new variations of his antitoxin, testing each one on tissue samples before administration. When she finally stabilized, Kai collapsed into his chair, exhausted. He'd used nearly a month's supply of antitoxin components, depleted rare minerals he'd spent months collecting, and risked contamination multiple times. All for a stranger who might still die before regaining consciousness. "This was probably a mistake," he told the silent chamber, his voice rusty from disuse. 3 years of talking only to himself had made conversation feel strange. "But I guess it beats playing chess against myself for the 500th time." A soft sound interrupted his musing, a change in her breathing pattern. Kai turned to find iridescent eyes watching him, pupils contracting to vertical slits in the bunker's artificial light. "Where?" The translator pendant at her throat crackled with static, converting her natural speech to a halting approximation of standard language. "You're in my bunker," Kai answered, approaching slowly with hands raised to show he was unarmed. You crashed. I found you outside. You were dying. The alien woman tried to sit up, then collapsed back with a sound that needed no translation. Pain was universal. Her four-fingered hand moved to her side, finding the temporary patches Kai had applied to her damaged environmental suit. Human, she said, the word carrying a complex intonation the translator couldn't quite capture. Kai Aldrin, he corrected, former xenobiologist for Galactic Research Initiative. Currently, the only thing standing between you and becoming plant food for Terminus 7's lovely crystal forests. She studied him for a long moment, alien features unreadable. Then, Vieira Tandrel, Junior Diplomatic Envoy, Nebulan Confederacy. Each word seemed to cost her effort. Why save, enemy? Kai's eyebrows rose. Enemy? Last I checked, the GRI and Nebulan had a non-aggression pact, unless something's changed in the 3 years I've been stranded here. Vieira's hand moved to her translator pendant, adjusting something. When she spoke again, her words came more clearly. Human expansionism threatens Nebulan sovereignty. Border disputes have escalated. Well, that's politics, Kai shrugged, turning to check his distillation apparatus. The next batch of antitoxin was nearly ready. Down here, there's just survival. You needed help. I provided it. Simple. The look she gave him suggested nothing about the situation was simple. Her eyes darted around the bunker, taking in the equipment, the sealed doorways, the carefully maintained life support systems. You live here alone. 3 years, 2 months, 17 days, Kai confirmed. Not by choice. Research expedition went bad. Extraction team never came. Survival protocols kicked in. He gestured to the complex array of equipment. I adapted. Vieira attempted to sit up again, more carefully this time. I must send signal. Others will come. Your distress beacon was damaged beyond repair, Kai said, watching her face fall. And even if it wasn't, the planet's magnetic field interferes with most standard frequencies. Trust me, I've tried everything short of building a space elevator. He paused, studying her reaction. Which raises the question, what was a Nebulan diplomatic vessel doing near Terminus 7 in the first place? This sector is under strict quarantine. Vieira's eyes narrowed, suspicion clouding her features. Diplomatic convoy to Peace Summit. We were attacked. Sabotage. By humans, Kai asked. By extremists, she answered carefully. Those who profit from conflict. The distillation apparatus beeped, indicating the next dose was ready. Kai moved to retrieve it, aware of Vieira's eyes tracking his every movement. The silence between them was heavy with unasked questions and unstated fears. She was his first contact with another sentient being in over 3 years, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that she was holding something back, something important. This will help with the toxins still in your system, Kai explained, approaching with the medicine. But I should warn you, there's no leaving this bunker without proper protection. The filters in your suit are beyond repair, and Terminus 7 doesn't forgive mistakes. Vieira looked at the medicine, then at Kai, calculation evident in her alien features. She had crashed on a deadly planet, been rescued by a member of a species her people considered hostile, and now depended entirely on this stranger for survival. Why should I trust you? She asked finally. Kai offered a tired smile. Same reason I'm trusting you not to kill me in my sleep. Neither of us has a better option. After a long moment, Vieira accepted the medicine. The uneasy alliance had begun. 2 weeks passed in a strange domestic rhythm. Vieira recovered slowly, her alien physiology fighting both the lingering toxins and Kai's improvised medicines. The space that had once been solely his became a shared territory, territories divided by invisible boundaries and cultural misunderstandings that led to frequent, heated exchanges. You've contaminated the mineral separation, Kai said one morning, gesturing to the workbench where Vieira had attempted to analyze her damaged equipment. I was improving it, she countered, her translator pendant now functioning smoothly. Your method is inefficient. My inefficient method has kept me alive for 3 years, Kai retorted, while your improvements just wasted a week's worth of critical compounds. They glared at each other across the workbench, neither willing to yield. It wasn't their first clash. She had already reorganized his medical supplies, making them more logical, and attempted to modify the air filtration system, nearly asphyxiating them both. On Nebulan, we optimize systems through collaborative innovation, Vieira said stiffly. Your human insistence on individual methods is why your species struggles with adaptation. Says the alien who would be dead without my individual methods, Kai muttered, turning away to salvage what he could from the ruined separation process. The silence that followed was heavy until Vieira spoke again, her voice softer. I apologize. On my world, to accept without improving is considered selfish. I meant no disrespect to your survival methods. Kai paused, surprised by the concession. Well, maybe there's room for some optimization. Just ask first, all right. The tentative peace established, they returned to their respective tasks. Vieira had been working tirelessly to repair her communication equipment, while Kai maintained their life support systems and continued his research into Terminus 7's toxic ecosystem. That evening, sharing a meal of hydroponically grown vegetables and synthesized protein, Vieira finally broached the subject that had lingered unspoken between them. You never asked why our convoy was attacked, she said, watching Kai carefully. Kai met her gaze. Figured you'd tell me when you were ready, or not. Political intrigue isn't exactly my specialty. Vieira set down her utensils. The peace summit was a last attempt at resolving border disputes. Certain factions on both sides prefer conflict. She hesitated. They particularly covet research on weaponizable biological compounds. Like the toxins found on Terminus 7, Kai concluded, the implications crystallizing. Is that why your escape pod happened to crash here? Were you looking for something? No, Vieira's denial was vehement. I was fleeing the attack. Random chance brought me here. She leaned forward. But I fear others may have been more deliberate in their navigation. You think someone else from your convoy crashed here intentionally? Vieira's expression darkened. The attack was too coordinated. Communications jammed at precisely the right moment, weapons targeting specific vessels. She touched her translator pendant, a nervous gesture Kai had come to recognize. I transmitted data proving sabotage just before my main ship was destroyed, if extremists believe I survived. They might come looking to silence you, Kai finished, his appetite suddenly gone. And they might know exactly where to find you. Their conversation was interrupted by a sharp beeping from Kai's monitoring system. He moved quickly to the console, Vieira following close behind. The screen displayed a satellite view of Terminus 7's surface, a red indicator blinking in the northern quadrant. Thermal signature, Kai explained, enhancing the image. Too regular to be natural. The image resolved to show a scorched impact trail ending in a crater, undeniably artificial and undeniably recent. Another crash site, Vieira whispered, her blue skin paling to a ghostly azure. 20 kilometers north of here. Kai magnified the image further. Unlike Vieira's diplomatic escape pod, this vessel showed clear military design, sleek, armored, and bristling with weapons systems that had survived the crash intact. Not a crash, Kai corrected grimly, a landing. Vieira's hand closed around his arm, her alien features tense with fear. Military-grade ship, Nebulan extremist faction. She met his eyes. They've come for me and for what Terminus 7 can give them. Weaponizable toxins, Kai concluded. With these compounds, they could create bioweapons capable of rendering entire planets uninhabitable. We must stop them, Vieira said. I know their protocols, their weaknesses, but I cannot leave this bunker without protection. Kai was already moving toward his workshop area. I've been working on something, an integrated filtration system based on the planet's own crystalline structures. He uncovered a pair of sleek, armored environmental suits, more advanced than the patchwork protection he currently used. Designed for extended exposure. I was saving the materials for an emergency. I believe this qualifies, Vieira said, examining the suits. Can they be adjusted for my physiology? Already done, Kai admitted, not meeting her eyes. After you recovered consciousness, just in case. Vieira looked at him with newfound understanding. Despite his gruff exterior and claims of pragmatism, he had prepared for her potential survival, had hoped for it, perhaps. If we leave, we may not return, she warned. The extremists are thorough. They will destroy anything that might compromise their mission. This bunker has kept me alive, but it's also been my prison, Kai replied, beginning preparations for their departure. Sometimes survival isn't enough reason to keep breathing. As they gathered supplies and weapons, the weight of their mission settled between them. Beyond the shared bunker lay unimaginable danger, a poisonous world and deadly pursuers. Yet something had shifted in their relationship. Reluctant allies had become something more, partners bound by common purpose and growing trust. Before sealing his helmet, Kai looked at Vieira one last time in the safety of the bunker. Ready to save the planet that's been trying to kill us. Vieira's alien features formed what he had come to recognize as a smile. Together, Kai Aldrin, we face death together. The crystalline forest of Terminus 7 shimmered under the alien sun, deadly beauty stretching to the horizon. Each step required careful navigation. Some crystal formations secreted contact toxins capable of burning through their protective suits within minutes. Others released spores that could clog filtration systems if disturbed. Kai and Vieira moved in tandem, communicating through hand signals and occasional whispers over their suit communicators. The valley narrows 2 kilometers ahead, Kai explained, consulting his terrain mapper. We'll need to cross the acid flats to reach the northern ridge. Vieira's eyes, visible through her helmet's faceplate, studied the distant landscape. The ship landed in the extraction zone, didn't it? Where the toxin concentration is highest. Kai nodded grimly. The old mining outpost. GRI abandoned it when they realized the compounds were too volatile for safe extraction. 3 research teams died before they implemented the quarantine. Yet you survived, Vieira observed. By respecting what this planet can do, Kai replied. Something your extremist friends might not understand until it's too late. They pressed forward, each carrying specialized equipment. Kai's pack contained monitoring devices and neutralizing agents developed during his years of research. Vieira carried weapons salvaged from her escape pod and modified by Kai's expertise, defensive measures against both Terminus 7's hazards and the extremists who had come for them. By midday, dark clouds gathered on the horizon, not natural weather, but a toxic storm generated by the planet's unstable atmospheric chemistry. Such storms could dissolve standard environmental suits in minutes, stripping flesh from bone shortly after. We need shelter, Vieira said, scanning the terrain. The storm will overtake us before we can reach the northern ridge. Kai checked his mapper, relief washing over his features. 3 kilometers east, an abandoned research outpost, secondary facility for the main extraction zone, if it's still intact. Lead the way, Vieira instructed, adjusting her course to follow him. They reached the outpost as the storm's edge began to overtake them, caustic droplets sizzling against their suit armor, leaving shallow pockmarks in the protective coating. The facility's outer doors had long since corroded, but the inner airlock remained functional. Kai overrode the security protocols with practiced ease, and they stumbled into the relative safety of the abandoned structure. Inside, emergency lighting flickered to life, powered by ancient backup systems. The outpost was a time capsule of human research, workstations covered in dust, equipment left mid-operation when the evacuation order came. Kai moved through the space with reverent familiarity, checking systems, and securing the perimeter. We should be safe here until the storm passes, he announced, removing his helmet only after triple-checking the air quality. The filtration system is still operating on minimal power. Vieira kept her helmet on, trust only extending so far. How long will the storm last? 6 hours, maybe 8, Kai estimated, moving to the facility's monitoring systems. With expert hands, he bypassed security lockouts and brought ancient screens to life. We can use the outpost sensors to get a better look at our extremist friends. As Kai worked, Vieira finally removed her helmet, her alien features relaxing slightly in the filtered air. She explored the outpost methodically, examining human technology with curious fingers. In the facility's small medical bay, she discovered a terminal still containing research logs. Kai, she called, voice tight with urgency, you should see this. The logs revealed the true purpose of the outpost, not just extraction, but weaponization. GRI scientists had been developing targeted bioweapons using Terminus 7's unique compounds, designed to attack specific genetic markers. The project had been abandoned not for safety concerns, but because the weapons had proven too indiscriminate, too deadly even for military application. Your people were creating the very weapons you fear the extremists will develop, Vieira said, voice carefully neutral. Kai stared at the screen, shock evident in his features. I didn't know. My research team was studying detoxification methods, potential terraforming applications. His eyes met hers, defiance mixing with shame. I wouldn't have been part of this. Perhaps not knowingly, Vieira acknowledged, but your research likely laid groundwork for theirs. The revelation hung between them, threatening to reopen the gulf of distrust. Outside, the toxic storm intensified, rattling the facility's reinforced windows with caustic fury. Kai turned away, moving back to the monitoring station. The extremists have set up an extraction operation at the main facility. They're using modified equipment, more efficient than anything GRI developed. He zoomed in on thermal signatures. 4 life forms, armed, professional. Vieira joined him, the personal tension temporarily set aside in favor of their mission. Their ship, she asked. Still operational. They're preparing for departure within 24 hours. Kai's expression darkened. Once they have what they need, they'll leave, taking Terminus 7's worst with them. And unleash it on populated worlds, Vieira finished, starting with those where my people live. The storm's howling created a primal backdrop to their strategy session. They formulated a plan to sabotage the extraction operation, using Kai's knowledge of the facility's weaknesses and Vieira's military training. As night fell over Terminus 7, the storm finally began to abate, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. In the dim emergency lighting, Kai found Vieira staring out a reinforced viewport at the crystalline landscape, now glistening with toxic residue from the storm. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said, standing beside her, "in its own deadly way." "Like much in this universe," Vieira agreed, "beauty and death often inseparable." "Like us?" Kai asked, the question escaping before he could reconsider. Vieira turned to him, alien features softened in the low light. "Are we beautiful, Kai Aldrin?" "I think we might be," he admitted. "Two beings who should be enemies finding something else entirely." The distance between them vanished as Vieira moved closer, four-fingered hand reaching up to touch his face with surprising gentleness. "On my world, to trust completely is the greatest intimacy. I have never trusted a human before you." "I haven't trusted anyone in a very long time," Kai replied, his hand covering hers. "Turns out isolation is the easy part. Connection, that's where the real courage lies." In the abandoned outpost, surrounded by deadly beauty and facing impossible odds, they found sanctuary in each other. Their embrace transcended species and politics, two souls connecting across biological divides. What began as tentative exploration deepened into passionate discovery, alien and human finding unexpected harmony in their differences. Later, as they lay together on emergency blankets spread across the outpost floor, Vieira traced the contours of Kai's face. "Tomorrow, we may die," she said simply. "Or we may save worlds," Kai countered, fingers gently following the fine-scale patterns of her skin. "Either way, we do it together." Outside, Terminus 7's crystalline forest gleamed under alien stars, beautiful and deadly, much like the connection forged between two beings who had found each other against all odds in a poisoned wilderness. Dawn broke over Terminus 7's horizon, painting the crystalline landscape in blood-red light. From their vantage point on the northern ridge, Kai and Vieira observed the extremist operation through enhanced optical equipment. 4 Nebulan militants worked with military precision around extraction equipment, their environmental suits more advanced than anything Kai had ever seen. "They've modified the original extraction process," Kai whispered, adjusting his scanner. "They're distilling the compounds to their most potent form. One canister could render an entire continent uninhabitable." Vieira's expression hardened behind her faceplate. "I recognize the commander, Drex Mavic, military strategist turned extremist. He believes Nebulan should dominate the sector through forced evolution." "Forced evolution?" "The toxins," Vieira explained grimly. "They don't just kill, they change living tissue at a fundamental level. Mavic believes exposing our people to controlled doses will accelerate our adaptive capabilities." Her voice tightened. "Countless would die for the greater evolutionary good." "Eugenics by another name," Kai muttered. "Always the same story, no matter the species." Their plan was dangerous but straightforward. Vieira would approach from the east, using her Nebulan credentials to create a distraction. Meanwhile, Kai would infiltrate the extraction facility through maintenance tunnels he'd discovered in the outpost schematics, sabotaging the operation from within. If successful, they would hijack the extremist ship and escape Terminus 7 with evidence of the plot. If unsuccessful, Their remains would dissolve into the planet's toxic soil within hours, leaving no trace. Communications check every 15 minutes, Kai said, adjusting Vieira's suit one final time. If anything goes wrong. Nothing will go wrong, Vieira interrupted, placing her four-fingered hand against his chest. But if it does, I want you to know this. You have changed how I see your species, Kai Aldrin. One human can remake the universe. Kai covered her hand with his. Funny, you've done the same for me. He leaned forward, their faceplates touching in the closest approximation of intimacy their suits allowed. See you on the other side. They separated, each moving toward their designated approach. Kai descended into the maintenance tunnels, navigating by memory through the corroded passageways. Years of toxic seepage had weakened structural supports, forcing him to detour several times. Each detour cost precious minutes, and by the time he reached the facility's underbelly, Vieira's distraction was already underway. He heard her voice through the facility's communication system, speaking in the clicking, whistling language of her people. Though he couldn't understand the words, the authoritative tone was unmistakable. She was leveraging her diplomatic credentials, creating confusion among the extremists. Kai worked quickly, planting destabilizing agents in the extraction equipment. The compounds required precise temperature control. His sabotage would trigger a catastrophic reaction, not large enough to destroy the facility, but sufficient to render the extracted toxins inert and buy them time to reach the ship. He was placing the final destabilizer when his suit sensors detected movement behind him. Kai turned to find himself facing a Nebulan extremist, weapon raised. Human, the translator spat, always interfering. Kai raised his hands slowly. Just admiring your extraction technique, very efficient. The Nebulan militant approached cautiously. Commander Mavic will want to interrogate this one, he said into his communicator. The diplomat appears to have found an ally. The sentence remained unfinished as Vieira appeared behind him, environmental helmet connecting with the back of the militant's head in a decisive strike. The extremist crumpled, unconscious. Your distraction seems to be working well, Kai observed dryly. Changed tactics, Vieira replied, retrieving the fallen extremist's weapon. Mavic recognized me. We have approximately 3 minutes before security protocols lock down the facility. Kai activated the destabilizers. That's 2 minutes more than we need. They moved through the facility with practiced coordination, neutralizing one more extremist before reaching the exterior airlock. Outside, the extremist ship waited on a makeshift landing pad, its engines in pre-launch configuration. Can you fly it? Kai asked as they approached the vessel. Standard military design, Vieira confirmed, but Mavic will have placed security protocols. A blast of energy scorched the ground between them, forcing them to dive for cover behind crystalline formations. Drex Mavic emerged from the facility, his environmental suit bristling with weapons attachments. Behind him, his remaining militant dragged cases of extracted compounds toward the ship. Diplomat Tandrel, Mavic's amplified voice carried across the toxic landscape. Your interference ends here. The evolution of our species cannot be stopped by one idealistic fool. Vieira signaled to Kai, indicating he should circle behind while she kept Mavic distracted. Your evolution is genocide, Mavic. The High Council will never support it. The Council is obsolete, Mavic replied, firing another energy blast that shattered crystals near Vieira's position. As are diplomatic solutions, Terminus 7 has given us the means to ensure Nebulan supremacy for 10,000 generations. As Mavic monologued, Kai reached the ship's access panel. Years of scavenging Terminus 7's technology had made him adept at bypassing security systems. Within moments, he had the ship's auxiliary systems under his control, including external defense mechanisms. A quick command, and defense turrets swiveled toward Mavic's position. The extremist commander's tirade ended abruptly as energy bolts from his own ship forced him to retreat. In the confusion, Vieira sprinted toward the vessel, diving through the entry hatch Kai had opened. The remaining militant abandoned the toxin cases, fleeing back toward the facility. Inside the ship, Kai and Vieira worked in perfect synchronicity, her knowledge of Nebulan systems complementing his technical adaptability. The engines roared to life as Mavic launched a desperate assault on the vessel, energy weapons glancing off military-grade shielding. Extraction equipment destabilizing, Kai announced, watching facility sensors through the ship's monitors. Compound degradation at 60% and rising. Vieira's hands danced across the navigation controls. Launch trajectory established. Atmospheric escape in 7 minutes. The ship rose from Terminus 7's surface, leaving Mavic and his operation behind. Through the viewports, they watched as the extraction facility succumbed to Kai's sabotage, equipment rupturing in a cascade of chemical reactions that neutralized the deadly compounds. As they broke through the upper atmosphere, Terminus 7 receded beneath them. No longer a prison, but the unlikely cradle of something neither could have imagined when they first encountered each other. Hope. In the ship's cockpit, Vieira set coordinates for the nearest neutral spaceport. The evidence we've gathered will expose both the extremist plot and the GRI's weapons research, perhaps finally force accountability. Kai stared at the navigation display, suddenly uncertain. And after, where do we go? Vieira turned to him, removing her helmet to reveal features that had become dear to him. That depends on what you want, Kai Aldrin. I cannot return to Nebulon, not immediately. The political fallout will make me a target. And I'm not exactly eager to report back to GRI, Kai admitted. Not after learning what they were really doing on Terminus 7. Then perhaps, Vieira suggested, her four-fingered hand finding his, we make our own path. The universe is vast. Somewhere between your world and mine, there must be a place for whatever this is between us. Kai removed his helmet, the ship's filtered air a luxury after years of careful survival. You know, I've heard the Proxima colonies are looking for xenobiologists with unconventional experience, and they might appreciate a diplomat with a unique perspective on interspecies relations. Proxima, Vieira tested the word, her alien features forming what Kai now recognized as a smile. It sounds like a beginning. The ship accelerated away from Terminus 7, carrying them toward an uncertain future, but one they would face together. Behind them, the poisoned world continued its crystalline evolution, indifferent to the small miracle it had inadvertently fostered. Two beings from different worlds, finding in each other what their respective peoples had yet to discover, the possibility of harmony born in the most toxic of circumstances. Indifferent stars witnessed their departure, the universe continuing its endless dance of creation and destruction. Yet in the small confines of a stolen ship, something precious had been salvaged from Terminus 7's deadly embrace. Not just two lives, but the promise of connection across the artificial boundaries of species and politics. A diplomat and a scientist, alien and human, survivors of a poisoned world. Together, they charted a course for somewhere new, somewhere between their worlds, where difference might become strength and isolation might give way to belonging. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.